I have read several ambiguous stories or stories which are not entirely clear as related to the two kids in Where's My Friend's Home. Finally, did you actually find them, locate them? And also, have you been keeping touch in them, or they must have, they are much older now? So this is the first question.
من نمیدونم که تماشاگرای شما فیلم رو دیدن، فیلم خانه دوست رو یا ندیدن.
I don't know if the members of your audience have already seen the movie Where Is My Friend's Home.
睇過嘅請舉手。
خب وقتی من این فیلم رو می ساختم هیچ نمیتونم فکر کنم که دارم برمیگردم دوباره به همینجا به همون لوکیشن و فیلم بعدی رو خواهم ساخت.
When I was directing the first movie, I would never imagine that I would be returning to the same location to direct the second one.
فقط وقتی زلزله اومد باز هم به عنوان فیلمساز نرفتم، یادم نمیاد که حرفه من چیه، با نگرانی میرفتم ببینم که این بچه ها زنده هستن یا نه.
And after the earthquake happened, I went to that location, to that place, not as a director, but as a concerned person trying to find out if those boys have survived the earthquake. And it was just not limited to those boys. Because it was a place I had memories, I had lived there. The people, the village, the school, all belonged to me. Therefore, I was just going to see what has happened to my movie. Because I had left a part of my movie there. Scenes in my movie that had not been actually shown in the movie, but they were part of the film and they had life in it. Therefore, the second film, The Life and Nothing Else, was the result of a one-day trip to that region.
احساس خوبی بود که پیدا کرده بودم بعد از اینکه بازگشتم از این سفر بدون اینکه اون بچه‌ها رو پیدا کنم.
Upon return from the trip back to Tehran, I had a very good feeling without having been able to find those children.
و اگر فیلم رو جدیداً دیده بودین شاید متوجه می‌شدین که منظورم چیه.
If you had seen the movie recently, you could probably have realized what I mean.
آره، قدرت زندگی که موجود بود با وجودی که 50,000 نفر در این زلزله از بین رفته بودن.
Despite of the fact that more than 50,000 people had perished, you could see the power of life there.
در واقع همین الان داره به فکرم میرسه که اینا 3 اپیزود از یک موضوع اگر فیلم طعم گیلاس رو به این اضافه کنیم، برای اینکه در پایان طعم گیلاس هم باز قدرت زندگی بود.
Again, if you consider the taste of cherry, you would also see that a very important part of the movie was the power of life.
در پایان فیلم
by the end of the film.
بنابراین خب حالا برای اینکه پاسخ صریح داده باشم، نه در پایان اون سفر ما بچه‌های خانه دوست رو پیدا نکردیم.
But in response to your question, a clear answer is that no, I was unable to find those boys.
ولی اون چیزی که باعث شد من یه فیلم بسازم این که زندگی رو پیدا کردیم، یعنی فکر کردیم چقدر قدرت عجیبی زندگی با همه اون نشانه هایی که در فیلم زندگی و دیگر هیچ بود.
And the main reason that I made the second film was the fact that I found the power of life and living, as you can see in the movie Life and Nothing Else.
I'm curious about the fact that whether this kind of tradition, mostly started by you, the making films with children, also at the same time maybe to avoid some censorship problem, is that still going on, or how does this kind of film has it become still continuing?
Okay. میگن که دلیل استفاده از بچه ها به خاطر این بوده که با سانسور روبرو بودیم و اینکه همچنان این روند ادامه داره یا نه؟
نه، این سوء تفاهم گاهی پیش میاد برای تماشاگر غیر ایرانی که من فیلم برای بچه ها ساختم برای اینکه از سانسور فرار کنم.
There's always this misunderstanding for non-Iranian audience members who are watching the film that they think that I directed this movie by children to escape censorship.
در واقع من اولین تجربه‌های فیلمسازیم رو با کانون شروع کردم.
In fact, my early experiences in film directing have started with Kanun, which is an organization about children.
قبل از اون براشون کتاب نقاشی می‌کردم برای بچه‌ها.
Prior to that, film directing, I used to paint for the children. Paint books for children. Illustrations.
ولی بعد به پیشنهاد کانون مرکز سینمایی کانون رو درست کردم و اولین فیلم رو 1970 ساختم برای بچه‌ها.
But later on, upon the suggestion by Kanun itself, we found the cinematic unit of Kanun, where in 1970 I directed my first ever movie for children.
قبلش تجربه‌های من در مورد فیلم‌های تبلیغاتی بود.
My prior experience in film directing was only limited to ad and commercial short clips.
بنابراین من 20 سال با کانون کار کردم و با بچه‌ها کار کردم.
Therefore, I can say that for over 20 years I have I've had the experience of working with children and directing for them.
و این تصمیم گیری نبود، اتفاق افتاد.
It was not a decision. It was not based on a decision-making process. It was something that happened automatically.
30 سالم بود دنبال شغل میگشتم و شغل خوبی بهم پیشنهاد شده بود.
I was at the age of 30 and I was looking for a job and I was offered a very good, lucrative one.
بنابراین شدم فیلمساز بچه‌ها.
Therefore, I ended up being a director for children.
ولی هیچ ناراضی نیستم.
But I'm not at all dissatisfied with that.
با وجود تمام محدودیتایی که داشتیم.
With all the difficulties and limitations that I faced.
ولی محدودیت‌های دلپذیر بود.
But they were all pleasant limitations and
یاد گرفتم که ساده حرف بزنم.
I learned to speak plainly and in a simple language.
و یاد گرفتم که عقاید پسیمیستی خودم رو منتقل نکنم به بچه‌ها.
I learned not to convey my pessimistic views to children.
و اینکه میدونستم مخاطب خاص دارم و مسئولیت دارم.
As I knew that I have an intended audience and I have a special purpose and I have a special duty in that respect.
و آروم آروم ظرف 20 سال کار با این محدودیت خودم تأثیر گذاشت و بعد از اینکه رها شدم از ساختن فیلم برای بچه‌ها دیدم در بزرگسالی هم نگاه بچه‌ها رو هنوز پشت.
And gradually after 20 years of working for children, directing for the children, it automatically and subconsciously had the effect on my own way of thinking. And when I left the profession for the children, I realized that it has had an impact on my own thinking too.
خب خیلی از فیلم‌های من یکی از فیلمام هست زندگی و دیگر هیچ. اما اگر به همه‌شون نگاه کنین مفهوم و معنای زندگی و دیگر هیچ رو، یعنی زندگی و دیگر هیچ رو من تو قالب فیلمام دارم.
The title of one of my movies is Life and Nothing Else. But if you take a look at my other films, you will see that the concept of life and nothing else is also there.
خب اینو از بچه‌ها دارم واقعا.
This is something I learned from children.
برای اینکه از اونها یاد گرفتم که هیچ چیزی به اندازه زندگی برای بچه‌ها ارزش نداره.
As I learned from children that nothing is more precious and more valuable than life for children.
آره گریه میکنن، دعوا میکنن، فریاد میزنن.
They cry, they fight, they shout out.
دروغ میگن.
Even lie.
فقط ولی همش یه هدف داره.
And only for one purpose.
زندگی.
Life.
I wouldn't call it a tradition, but it's still this line of films with children. Is this and with the directors gradually, getting more mature. I wouldn't say mature, but getting on to develop their career. It seems that this line of films have been left behind. What is the exact situation in Iran about this?
خب در شروع کار بدایی که من دو تا مسئولیت داشتم، یکی تهیه کننده فیلم‌های بچه‌ها بودم، یکم کارگردان.
At the beginning, obviously, I had two responsibilities. One was to produce, and the other was to direct for children.
خب خیلی زود فهمیدیم که فیلمسازی برای بچه‌ها همونطور که گفتم بیشتر محدود میشه به سینمای کمدی، سینمای لذت بخش، فیلم‌های انترتین.
And as I already explained, I quickly realized that the movies for children should be about comedy, should be about entertainment and happy ending.
در حالی که به یه چیز دیگه‌ای هم بچه‌ها احتیاج داشتن.
Well, this is the fact that we cannot forget about the point that there are other things that need to be covered for children.
فیلمایی که در واقع توجه میده به بزرگترها برای اینکه مراقبت کنن از بچه‌ها.
These are all movies that is a kind of warning or a hint for their parents to pay more attention to children.
و این محدود فقط به پدر و مادر نمیشه.
And it's not just limited. And it's just not limited to parents. It's also a lesson for the teachers, the caregivers, and the officials in charge.
دست فیلمسازا رو باز گذاشتن با سیاست‌های قانون که فیلم درباره بچه‌ها یا برای بچه‌ها بسازن و این دو لاین گوناگون.
Therefore, in Qanun, the directors were free to choose from two subjects, one for children and one about children.
من خودم فیلمایی ساختم درباره بچه‌ها که بچه‌ها مجاز نبودن ببینن.
I made some movies. I directed movies for about children that even children were not allowed to watch them.
دارم یه فیلم دارم بسم مشق شب.
I have one movie called Homework
نباید میدیدن.
That children were not allowed to watch, and some other movies.
Okay. Then on to close up. What happened to the man afterwards? Did he finally get to make a film by himself? And definitely, I think your film must have a great effect on him. So, are you keeping in touch with him, or do you know the whereabouts of him?
از کنم که خب طبیعتا ما نمیتونیم مدام بازیگرامون رو ببینیم به دلیل اینکه از یه فیلم میریم به یه فیلم دیگه و برای فیلمسازا حتی دیدار دوستاشون هم بعضی وقتا غیر ممکنه چه برسه به اینکه بخوان همه بازیگرا رو نگه دارن.
Obviously, as a director, as you move from one project to another, it would be very difficult to be able to keep contact with almost all of your actors and actresses. Even we find it difficult to keep contact with our friends, let alone our...
گاهی میدیدمش.
I would sometimes see him.
یادم یه بار توی فستیوال بود که خیلی شلوغ بود، من بلیط نداشتم برم تو.
I remember that I was attending a festival which was very crowded and the tickets have all been sold out and I was behind the door, left out.
این داخل بود.
He was inside.
سبزیان و اومد بیرون منو برد تو و اینکه منو کسی نمیشناخت ولی اونو میشناختن.
He came outside and took me inside because people knew him but nobody knew me.
در فستیوال پوسان.
But later on in Busan festival.
رئیس جشنواره هر وقت من هر جایی میدید میگم من عاشق این فیلمم.
But the head of the festival told me on every occasion he saw me that how much he loved the movie.
و بارها نشون دادم.
And on numerous occasions I showed him.
و میخواستم که سال دیگه 20مین سال تولد کلوزآپو جشن بگیرم در پوسان.
And I wanted to, the following year, I wanted to celebrate the 20th anniversary of directing that movie, Close Up, in Busan.
ولی 19مین سال من بازنشست شدم.
But on the 19th year, I was actually retired.
بنابراین نمیتونم نشون بدم.
Therefore, I cannot show it.
همین امسال شانس دارم بیا یک کاری بکنیم.
He said, I have, this year is the only chance for me to be able to do that. So let's do something together.
به دلیل اینکه این اولین باره که میاد بیرون و براش دشوار برگشتن و تو زندگی کوچیک و حقیرانه خودش زندگی کردن.
As it was difficult for him, it was to return again to his humble life. So I asked him, please reconsider this request.
گفت پس چی پیشنهاد میکنی؟
He asked me to see what suggestions Mr. Kiarostami has.
گفتم که بیا یک پول مختصری بذار یک فیلم مستند راجع به زندگیش تهیه کنیم اینکه منم میخوام بدونم داره چیکار میکنه.
I suggested to him that let's try to finance a small amount to direct a documentary about his life.
اون از یک دانشگاهی پول مختصری گرفت.
He was able to provide the funding from the university.
و من زنگ زدم به سبزیان.
I called Mr. Sabzian.
و گفتم که یه فیلم مستند راجع به تو میخوان بسازیم.
And I let him know about my intention of directing a documentary about him.
و اون من گفتش که من یه خونه میگیرم تا این کارو بکنم چون خونه ندارم.
And his offer, he said he would need a house in return for a movie about his life.
من گفتم که در واقع تهیه کننده اون فیلم من نبودم بنابراین تو دستمزد گرفتی من دستمزد گرفتم من ندارم بیام چه امکانی که
I told him, I tried to reason with him. I said, I'm not the producer. I have, as a director, I have received my own salary from the producer, just like you, that you're going to be playing in the movie, and I don't have that amount of money to buy a house for you in Iran. It took me a while, a long time, to be able to get his consent.
$10,000 بودجه این فیلمه.
I told him that the budget for the movie is about $10,000.
و شما سه قسمت تقسیم کنید.
And we will divide it in 3.
مخارج فیلم، پول کارگردان و دستمزد.
The expenditure, the director's fee, and your salary.
داستان من یه ذره طولانیه ولی کار ما همینه دیگه.
Sorry for the long story, but this is what we do.
بعد 7 صبح باش قرار گذاشتیم در یه جایی که فیلمو شروع کنن اسکریپتش هم من نوشته بودم.
I had already prepared the script, written the script, and I made an appointment with him to meet him at a location to do the shooting.
فیلم بردار و کارگردان رفتن سر صحنه.
The cameraman and the director were at the stage.
و ساعت 10 زنگ زدن که این نیومده سر کار.
And they called me saying he has not appeared at the scene.
گفتم کجاست؟ بعد من شما تلفن پسرشو داشتم.
I had his son's telephone number.
و زنگ زدم بهش گفتم که این کجاست.
I asked his son where his father is.
با یه صدای خیلی غمگینی گفت صبح که داشت میمد سر کار افتاد زمین و بیهوش شد و الان توی بیمارستان.
In a very sad voice he told me that in the morning when he was leaving home he fell on the floor and remained unconscious and he's now in hospital.
من تلفن بیمارستان گرفتم و زنگ زدم با دکترش حرف زدم و فهمیدم قصه واقعیه.
And I called his doctor in the hospital and I found out the story is true.
هر حال گروه فیلم برداری که 2-3 نفر بیشتر نبودن رفتن جلو بیمارستان و یه فیلم خیلی خوبی ساختن راجع.
The camera crew went to the hospital, in front of the hospital, and made a very good movie there, good film there.
من رفتم دیدمش خب بیهوش بود حرف نمیزد.
When I went there and visited him, he was lying in bed unconscious. He couldn't speak.
3 ماه طول کشید.
It took him 3 months
و فوت کرد.
and later on he passed away.
و برای این پروندهش دوباره با فیلم بسته شد.
And again, his case was closed in a movie. Yes,
داستان سبزیان.
That's the story of Mr. Sabzian.
Has the film ever been released?
فیلم منتشر شده؟
فیلم نه، ولی میتونم برای این میدونستم که انقدر تماشاگرها دیدن فیلمو میآوردن.
If I knew that there is so much enthusiasm about this, I would have brought along with me the movie, the film.
برای اینکه جلو بیمارستان ساخته شده و سری آدمایی که اومدن و درگیرن با این شخصیت خیلی فیلم جذابیه.
Because it's directed and made in front of the hospital, and there are many people that come and go in this movie that has made this movie very attractive.
یک چیز خیلی مهمی است که سبزیان یه دونه نبوده، یعنی عاشقان سینما و واقع شیفتگانی که نتونستن خودشون رو اینجوری ارتباط برقرار و بابت فیلمسازی یه دونه نبوده.
Because Mr. Sabzian is not only one. There are many cinema buffs and movie buffs that have not been able to get involved and continue their passion of making or directing film. There have been many people like him.
We were told in the film that the main protagonist is waiting for the old woman to die, to pass away, so as to film her funeral, because it's supposed to be a very special ritual or special funeral along the line of the tradition in that village. But we were never told what exactly is special about that funeral. Were we?
I haven't seen that funeral either. So I'm actually that director that returned. We waited a lot, but that death didn't happen. But I've heard that it's a very, very different funeral.
میزان شیون و جاری که میکنن تبدیل به یه سرمونی میشه و دیگه زیاد ربطی به متوفا نداره.
And the volume of jeering and cry and passion after death is so much that later on turns into a ceremony which has nothing to do with the dead person.
When you developed to the point with 5, actually we...
5?
Yeah, 5. We don't actually, it's not exactly a humanistic world, a human world. You were shooting, a piece of wood, you were shooting the moon, the water, the ducks, the dogs. And then of course, after that you move to Shirin. But even Shirin is full of faces, is full of, human beings. Still is kind of an abstract in the sense that you're dealing with things inside the minds of the actresses, and then a world which is outside the screen. And is this kind of at least up to say Shirin, is this kind of development, this line of direction, is it intentional or is it's just a very natural line of development for you?
نمیدونم من قبلا گفتم یا نه، ولی من قصدم اصلا این نبود که فیلمساز بشم.
I don't know if I have said this or not, but I had no intention of becoming a director.
که رفتم فهمیدم که معنای نقاشی عوض شده با اون چیزی که من در تصورم بوده.
But when I started my major in college, I realized that painting is something different from what I had in mind.
بنابراین همیشه مقابل اون بومی که داشتم احساس ضعف میکردم و روز دوم سوم پروژه رو رها میکردم، میرفتم طبقه بالا که کتابخونه بود.
Therefore, anytime I wanted to put my hand to painting, I felt so weak, and I would leave it and would go up there to the higher level to read books.
نقاشی تماشا میکردم.
I'm sorry, not read books, to just look at the paintings.
و بعد فهمیدم که نمیتونم ادامه بدم دانشگاه رو.
Then I realized that I would not continue this major at the university.
خب به زور منو بیرون کردن در واقع، چون قانون این بود که دانشگاه رو باید تمام میکردی و دوره 4 ساله من 13 سال طول کشید.
a 4-year program took me 13 years to finish.
بنابراین این میل به نقاش بودن همچنان درم بود.
I had this passion or willingness to paint always inside me.
در حالی که میدونستم این که عیناً وقتی چیزی رو بازسازی میکنی دیگه اسمش نقاشی نیست.
But I knew
وقتی یاد گرفتی تازه میفهمی که راه اشتباهی داری.
But I knew that when you learn something, you realize that you have gone a wrong way.
برای اینکه به حال اون دوره رئالیسم بود.
As it was the period of realism.
و ما میباید که ناتورمورد رو عیناً که خودش بود میکشیدیم.
And we were forced. We had to make an exact copy of the work that was given to us by the teacher.
در اروپا 50 سال بود که پشت سر گذاشته.
This is while that in the same period of the same style of teaching had been put aside by Europeans 50 years ago. The reason I'm referring to this is because the industry cinema also follows that line. Realism is a part of the cinema.
که تازه بعد از اون که اون دوره پشت سر میذاری به یه معنا و مفهوم هنری و عمیق‌تری راجع به سینما و انسان رسید.
And only after having put behind that period you come to the true meaning of human and life in that stage.
و چیزی که بیشتر از همه مقاومت من رو برمی‌انگیزه بابت حرفه خودم نقشی است که توقع تماشاگر و اون که ما میباید داستانگو باشیم.
And what makes my resistance in my profession more much stronger is the expectation that the audience has from the director, that looks at the director as a storyteller.
و اون چیزی که نهایتاً برای تماشاگر میمونه وقتی میان بیرون در 2 خط داستان فیلمو تعریف میکنن.
And what the audience perceives from the movie is only expressed in 2 lines when they leave the theater.
و حتی گاهی تحلیل هم میکنن و گاهی نتیجه اخلاقی هم میگیرن که خیلی به نظر من سینما دوره.
And sometimes they have their own interpretations, and also the ethical or moral justification or interpretations that they have is far away from the intention of the cinema.
فیلمایی که اشاره کردیم بهش تجربیات شخصی منه که خودم دوست دارم و هیچ انتظار واکنش و گیشه و برگشت سرمایه هم ندارم چون خیلی هزینه‌اش پایینه.
The movies you talked about are my personal experiences that I like them very much and I don't expect any return from them as the initial investment is very low.
آره فیلم مثل 5
The movie like 5
یا فیلم مثل شیرین
like شیرین
یا حتی فیلم‌های دیگه کوتاهی که
or even some other short movies that you haven't seen because I haven't
اینا به من
given
بیشتر
them
رضایت
out.
شخصی میده و اینکه به سینما نزدیک‌تر.
They give me more satisfaction because they are closer to the cinema's intention.
آره این فیلم‌ها رو وقتی تماشاگر از سینما بیاد بیرون نمیتونه برای کسی تعریف کنه که چی دیده.
These movies, the audience after watching these movies cannot retell it to another person. They cannot.
چون میگم سینمایی که بتونه به 2 لاین به 2 خط از داستان تبدیل بشه من باهاش سازگاری ندارم.
As I said, I don't like a cinema that can be defined in 2 lines by the audience.
برای همین من در کنار فیلم‌های سینمایی که به هر حال تماشاگر احتیاج داره، تهیه کننده احتیاج داره، کنار اون تجربیات شخصی خودم رو دارم ادامه میدم.
And that's the reason I continue with my own personal experiences through these movies alongside the experiences of the director and the producer.
و عکاسی نابترین بخشمونه.
And photography is the perfect and purest example of it.
برای اینکه هیچ کس انتظار داستان از یک عکس نداره.
As no one expects story from a photo.
ولی هر کسی تعبیر شخصی خودشو داره.
But everyone has their own interpretation from that photo.
تو نمایشگاه جلوی 10 تا عکس رد میشیم و جلوی یکی از اونها متوقف میشیم، اون یک معنایی داره که شاید خودمونم واقف نباشیم.
And when you're walking in a gallery and you pass a couple of works and stop in front of just one, this has a special meaning that we may not be aware of.
حالا به هر حال ترکیب این هر دو تاست که الان من توی موقعیت.
And it's a mixture of both that I'm now in this position.
من میخوام خواهش کنم یک سوال رو بگیم تماشاگر اگر اجازه بدید.
If you would like, let's ask a member of the audience to pose one question.
Okay.
It seems you're not particularly interested in doing adaptations. May I ask why? And are there any books that have amazed you to the extent that you really want to make it into a movie? Thank you.
خب کاری که تا حالا نکردم قطعاً علاقه بهش نداشتم.
Certainly, if I haven't done anything, that shows that I had no interest in it.
و اینکه ادبیات کاملاً مقابل سینمایی ایستاده.
As literature, the books that you were talking about, stands right in front against the cinema.
من به نظرم بهترین تجربهش، بهترین مثالش مجموعه فیلم‌هایی است که در دنیا کار شده از نوبل‌های خیلی مشهور و مهم.
The best example of this is a collection of films that have been based on the adaptations from the dramas and some very famous novels.
تقریبا هیچ خواننده‌ای رو راضی نکرده وقتی که یک نوبل رو میخونین و بعد فیلم رو میبینین، تقریبا همه میگفتن معتقدن که کتاب از فیلم بهتر یا فیلم توان القای تأثیر کتاب رو ما نداشت.
The reader, upon seeing the film, which is an adaptation, can certainly tell you that the film has not been able to convince or live up to that expectations that they had prior to coming to see the movie.
این اصلا رد ادبیات نیست. جایگاه ادبیات معتبره.
This is not to reject literature. It has a valid position in the world.
ولی کاملا دو تا لاین مختلف.
But there are two different philosophies, two different categories.
سینما قدرت چیز نداره. قدرتی که کلمات رو تبدیل بکنه به تصویر نداره.
The cinema does not have the ability or the power to turn words into picture.
Okay. We'll have an open session after this. Shirin, what amazes me is, and every time I came to think of it, I mean, it's a total mystery for me, and also, a huge job, and it's the editing process. You told us and of course, we gather this from the making of and also from the reportage. We know that you filmed each actress for 6 minutes, which means that, as you told us yesterday, altogether you have 700 minutes of footages, and it's just one take, and you have no storyline, nothing to follow. And then, of course, you then make up the story outside the screen. But still, when it comes to which shot is going to be followed by which shot, which emotion is going to be followed by which emotion, which actress is going to be followed by which actress, is an indefinite choice. It is unlimited.
دقیقاً همینطور بود.
Certainly, that's the case you're talking about.
سوال کنم شیرین چه کسانی دیدن؟
I just want to again ask how many people here have watched Shirin.
Sì.
Normally, places I go, nobody has seen Shireen. I have two places which I have seen people watch the Shireen was in France and UK. I think I should probably think about you when I'm directing my next movie. Among my work, I consider Shireen as an exceptional one.
برای اینکه شیوه کار کردن خیلی متفاوت بود با اون چیزی که باید.
Because as you would expect, the way I directed this movie was quite different from what it is normal and suggested.
گفتم حدود 700 تا 700 دقیقه ما فیلم داشتیم.
As I said, we had a recording of around 700 minutes.
و هر کس 6 دقیقه.
And each cast member, each actress had around 6 minutes.
و در واقع هیچ جوری هم کارگردانی نشده بود.
And no coaching actually was involved there.
فقط گفته بودم به این کاغذ سفید مثل این نگاه کنید زیر دوربین.
I had installed a small piece of paper on the tripod in front of each actress, and I had asked them to look at that piece of paper.
و به یک رابطه عاطفی خودتون در گذشته فکر کنید.
And I had asked them to think, to recall an emotional episode in their personal life.
و بعد وقتی فیلم تمام شد گفتم با یه مقدار زیادی راش نمی‌دونستم با اینا چیکار باید.
And when the recording ended, I didn't know what to do with this amount of recording.
کدوم این 6 دقیقه به شدت برای من به عنوان تماشاگر تکون دهنده بود.
As every 6 minutes of this recording was as shocking as to me as an audience member.
بعد از هر روز فیلم برداری یک حس خیلی عجیبی بود که حالا من با این راشد چیکار کنم.
And after every day after recording, I had this feeling of what to do with this rush of film.
در واقع دوبله معکوس بکنیم. تصویر رو یعنی صدا رو دوبله کنم با تصویر.
It was actually the other way around. I would wanted to dub it the other way around. I would wanted to adapt the audio clip with the picture as opposed to the picture with the audio.
قیمت اون نوار خیلی زیاد بود برای نوار صوتیش.
As I was unable to pay for the privilege and the copyright of Romeo and Juliet.
برای یک قصه دیگه ایرانی که مربوط به 800 سال پیشه، یک قصه عاشقانه شبیه رومئو و جولیت.
I decided to choose another similar story which is an 800 years story of an which is in Iranian literature.
اسمش خسرو و شیرینه.
It's called Khosrow and Shirin.
راجع به عشق مثلثه.
It's about a triangular love.
من خودم این دو تا فیلمی که شما دیدین دیگه ندیدمش از زمان ساخت تا الان.
The movies you watched today, I haven't seen since I directed them.
اولین بار که در کن دیدم و آخرین بار
For the first time I saw them in Cannes Festival last
سال بعدش هم نه 17 سال
16 years ago.
و دومیش هم در ونیز
And the
دیدم.
second time I saw it in Venice.
دیگه ندیدم.
And since then I haven't seen them again.
ولی شیرین رو بیش از 50 بار دیدم.
But I have watched Shirin more than 50 times.
فقط به دلیل اون رازی که توی شیرین هست.
And only because of that mystery that is hidden in that movie.
چی میگذره در ذهن
What is going on in their minds?
آره زنهایی که نشستن
In the minds of those women, the actresses that are recalling that emotional episode in their life.
این تصنعی ترین یا تقلبی ترین فیلمی است که من کار کردم.
This is the most artificial and most fake movie I have ever made.
ولی لحظاته، ولی هر تصویری که نگاه میکنی از یه حقیقتی حرف میزنه.
But every picture you
غیر قابل دسترسیه.
Every picture you see has a story of a reality which cannot be achieved.
کاشکی 3 دقیقه‌شو داشتین نشون میدادین که یادآوری کنیم ببینیم.
I wish you had 3 minutes of it so the audience could just be reminded of it.
One more thing, it's about the story outside the screen, the audio. It must have also been quite a task to record the first of all to adapt the story, then to cast the story and then record it with music, with sound effects. And one more thing is sometimes it doesn't sound like a film. Sometimes it seems to be a play, but then sometimes it seems to be a film. So again, this decision to make this outside film, how does it come about?
سعیم بر این بوده که به نظر بیاد که صدای سینماست.
I did my best to make it look like the audio coming from the movie screen.
یعنی صدایی که از سالن بره
I tried to make it as normal, as natural as possible to make sure that it's inside the theater room.
ولی به توصیه صدا بردارم گفت اگه اینطور باشه تعقیبش یا ادامه یعنی درکش برای تماشاگر سینما سخته. یه ذره به نفع قابل فهم و قابل درک بودن کوتاه بیایم و صدا رو یه ذره نت‌تر نشون بدیم. Soundman.
But I took the advice of my sound man that in order to make it a little bit more understandable by the audience members in the movie, inside the theater, let's bring it a little bit more understandable to them. درست گفتم؟
درست. آره میدونیم که صدایی که تو سالن پخش بشه اینقدر دقیق نت نمیتونه باشه.
As we knew that if we wanted to broadcast or play the sound in the theater, it could not be as meticulous as the one you see in the film.
من پیشنهاد میکنم یه میذارن 5 دقیقه آخر فیلمو.
I would suggest you show the last 5 minutes of the movie.
How been projection 嘅
5 minutes 3 دقیقه
how been projection 師傅麻煩我哋第一陣放最後嗰5分鐘。
The last 3 minutes of the last 3 minutes of the last 5 minutes is
Okay, 3分鐘至5分鐘啦，我哋睇下第一陣時間，預備5分鐘先。Okay, one last question for me because I understand that lots of audience would like to have lots of questions. You talk about paintings. Do you still paint, or because we know your photography, and you've also published your photography, several books now. Do you still paint, or do you have any intention of publishing your paintings?
دلم هنوزم میخواد ولی نمیتونم.
I still like to paint, but I can't.
گاهی شروع کردم به کار ولی زود فهمیدم که دیگه کار من نیست.
Sometimes I have started to paint, but I quickly realized that it's not my job.
Okay, but we want to see it as many as possible. Okay, 我哋俾觀眾發問啦。
It's very interesting that just now you said that making films with children really take your mind off your pessimistic thoughts. But in certified copy, it seems to me that is probably from certified copies, I think it's rather pessimistic. I wonder if it's the movie that you pour your doubtfuls or pessimistic thoughts about art and relationship into, because it seems to me that the hero and the heroine in certified copies, they try to find happiness from replica of arts and made up relationships. So that's my question.
من نفهمیدم. میخواد بگی که میخواد بگیم که
Can you make yourself
من در اون
clear?
فیلم بدبینتر از فیلم‌های دیگه
Do you plan to say? Are you saying that Mr. Director has Mr. Kiarostami is pessimistic in that movie?
Yeah, it seems to me that it's not as
Optimistic.
بله من میاد که مثل همیشه تو خوشبین نیستید.
آره خب من الان 15 سال دیگه برای بچه‌ها کار نمی‌کنم.
Yes, I agree. I haven't had any work with children over the past 15 years.
بچه‌های خودم بزرگ شدن رفتن.
My own children have grown up and left me.
طبیعتاً مثل اون روزا نمیتونم خوشبین باشم.
Normally, I would not be as optimistic as when I was working with children.
تازه به نظرم اینو نگفتم که دفاع کنم از خودم، تازه اگر راجع به اون حرف بزنیم شاید متوجه بشین که فیلم خیلی بدبینانه نیست. یعنی
I don't want to defend myself, but if you really want to talk about that movie, you realize that this movie is not that pessimistic.
به نظرم اگر بخوام بگیم من اعتقاد ندارم که ما میتونیم فیلم رو در یه جمله بیان بکنیم.
As I believe that we cannot define or talk about a movie in just one single sentence.
ولی اینو یه خانومی تعریف کرد، گفت من چیزی که از این فیلم گرفتم خیلی به دردم خورد و من فعلا به اون اکتفا میکنم به اون بیان.
A lady told me one sentence about the certified coffee that that sentence is sufficient for me. That's enough for me.
گفت هم تلخ این پیام و هم ناامید کننده نیست.
She said the message that she got from the certified coffee is both bitter and not disappointing.
این پیام اینه که عشق مراقبه احتیاج داره.
Meaning love needs caring.
و رابطه مراقبه احتیاج داره.
And relationship needs more interaction.
ما از درخت اگه مراقبت نکنیم خوش میشه.
If we don't take care of a tree, it would go dry.
ولی نمیدونیم چرا اگر که بعد از 10 سال زندگی حالا دیگه میتونیم که رها کنیم و فکر کنیم همه چیز و همون قدرت نمیمونه.
But I don't know. I wonder why after 10 years of living together, we think that if we leave things as they are, they would be perfectly fine.
بدبینانه نیست.
It's not pessimistic.
واقع بینانه است.
It's realistic.
و متاسفانه واقعیت یه خورده بدم هست.
And unfortunately, reality is to some degree bad.
Did you make references to the painter Peter Bruegel in when the wind carried? The wind carries us.
Which painter, sir?
Peter Bruegel.
Peter Bruegel.
He doesn't recall that.
Okay.
کجا اشاره کرده؟
Where did he refer to?
Some of the landscape scenes.
الان یادم نیست، شاید که به نقاشیش اشاره کردم نه به اسمش.
I don't recall that at the moment. Perhaps I have referred to his work, not to him personally.
I mean to his work.
آره خب حالا سوالتون چیه؟
Yeah, what's your question?
Yes, in the wind will carry us. I'm just wondering if he's influenced by Peter Bruegel.
Certainly I have been influenced by it.
ما نمیتونیم بگیم که این چه که به عنوان یک اثر از ما بیرون میاد متأثر از خودمون بوده، از کجا بودیم.
We cannot say that what we make and direct is not something that has not been influenced by other factors.
به هر حال ما بیشتر تألیف میکنیم، گردآوری میکنیم، جمع میکنیم تا خلق کنیم.
We are more involved in gathering things than in creating things.
و هر اثری یک مجموعه رویدادهایی است که در بخش آگاه و ناخودآگاه ما
Therefore,
دارن و به شکل یه اثر میان.
Therefore, every work that we make or direct is a collection of things, ideas that have been unconsciously hidden inside us.
هیچ جای هیچ اثری به نظرم نیست که متعلق به من باشه.
No work you can find that is 100% belong to me.
همش از این برانور جمع شده.
It's a collection of things gathered from here and there.
我覺得阿巴斯先生嘅作品最神秘嘅其中一個地方係佢聲音嘅運用，係好神秘而且好有想像力。咁我記得有佢兩個例子，例如好似 ABC Africa 裏邊嘅7分鐘嘅黑畫面嘅經歷咧，同觀眾，同埋雪蓮裏邊啱啱舒淇先生可能提到嘅入邊有啲好奇怪嘅水聲。咁我想問阿巴斯先生喺每套戲裏邊點樣設計你嘅聲音？
من همیشه در هر فرصتی از طریق تحریک عواطف تماشاگر و خاطره اون میل دارم که بیشتر درگیر بشه با فیلم و چیزی رو ببینه که قبلا ندیده.
I always try to stimulate by stimulating the audience reaction and creating an image in his mind. I try to get him involved in things that he has previously been involved in.
شما طریق صدا میتونید ببینید.
And through sound you can see things.
و این درست در همون لحظه شما دیگه تماشاگر ساده فیلم نیستید.
And that particular moment or scene, you are not just a simple audience member.
که دارین ترکیب میکنین اون صدا رو توسط خاطرتون و اضافه میکنین به فیلم.
As you are receiving the sound, mix it with your memory and then you add it back to the movie.
این یک جوری تحریک خلاقیت تماشاگر است.
In some way it is stimulating the audience creativity.
و بعد باز یک ویژگی دیگه صدا اینه که شما دیگه حجم می‌بینید سینما رو، دیگه یه سطح نمی‌بینید.
And then you would not, another good thing about sound is that it would take you beyond the line. You would see volume.
چون همطور که می‌دونید ما متاسفانه ناچاریم فقط یه سطح از واقعیت نشون بدیم. اکران یه سطح بیشتر نیست.
As unfortunately we are only able to show in just one layer of the film because of life, one layer of life, because we can only see the movie screen, which is in one level.
زندگی یعنی یک مکعبه.
As life looks like a cube.
یک سقف داره، یه زمین
It
داره،
has a
4 ضلع
ceiling and 4 angles.
ما فقط یه سطحشو می‌بینیم.
But we only see just one side, one angle.
با اشاره به صداهای خارج از کادر شما متوجه اضلاع دیگه زندگی میشید.
Through sound, you get to know and notice the other layers of life.
از طریق تخیل.
Through your imagination.
ما برای این کار، برای صدای همه فیلم‌ها من یادمه که میشینیم و با چیز طراحی میکنیم.
So in making a decision about the sound of my movies, we sit down together and we design how to put the sound.
صرفاً به خاطر اینکه این احساس میل به خلاقیت رو در اون لحظه به تماشاگر میده.
With that specific purpose of creating that sense of creativity in the audience members.
The wind will carry us. There are some poetic citations, and also actually the landscape actually contains a lot of spatial poetics. So actually, how important is poetry in your cinema?
من نمیدونم جایگاه شعری چقدره ولی تو زندگیم خیلی زیاد.
I don't know how much the poetry plays a role in my films, but in my personal life it plays a great role. Even if the illiterates, those who cannot read and write, can actually read poetry. Sufi? He doesn't have a specific person. He means that those even who can't read and write can also recite poetry. Although they would recite it not in a perfect pitch, but still.
من یه خورده از دیگران بیشتر برای اینکه من یکی از کارام تحقیق راجع به شعر و چندین کتاب تالا در مورد شعر منتشر کردم.
I have personally I have done more research about poetry and even published several books about poetry in Iran.
در مورد حافظ، در مورد سعدی.
About Hafiz, about Sa'di.
در مورد رومی 2 جلد داره.
Rumi, two volumes.
بنابراین شعر یه بخشی از زندگی ماست.
Therefore, poetry is a part of my personal life.
In this master class, I have heard a little bit point of view from you about cinema. Like you think that cinema is not powerful enough to, re-illustrate the beauty of literature, and okay. To be short, what is film to you actually, as an art form or as a career and anything else?
نمیدونم من خودمون در چه طبقه بذارم.
I really don't know to which category I belong.
آره من بدونم من کارهای گوناگونی انجام میدم هر بار به دلیل شرایطی که پیش میاد.
I have done different work based on the different situations that I am at that particular time.
من هر 2 سال یه بار عملا فیلم میسازم.
In fact, I direct movies every 2 years.
ولی خب بینش چی کار باید بکنم؟
So what should I do in between?
گاهی عکس میگیرم.
Sometimes I get myself involved in photography. When there is enough light.
وقتی نورم نیست تنهام گاهی کار شعر میپرم.
And when I'm in my solitude and when I'm alone on my own, I write poems.
روی شعر کار.
Work on the poems.
What fascinates you from film as an art form that you're continuing?
یه از نظر شما فیلم چه بخش هنری داره که همچنان ادامه میدید بهش؟
بیشتر کمتر از بقیه چیزا نقشه هنری داره، بخش هنری داره.
Less than other things, I view it as an art.
به هر حال هر چیزی که به سرمایه محدود میشه باید یه ذره به شک کرد.
Anything that is limited by capital or investment, we should doubt it.
OK， 好多謝大家今日嚟呢一個 Master Class。